Welcome back. A few issues here. Former Obama advisor David Axelrods is going to release a new book. It's called Believer, My 40 Years in Politics. And we've already gotten a few of the details that have been released. The book's going to come out February 10th. Now, one of those details is that President Obama was reportedly irritated by Mitt Romney's concession call during the 2012 presidential election. Axelrod says that Romney insinuated the president only won by getting the black vote. He said, Romney said, "Oh, you did a really good job getting the vote out in places like Cleveland and Milwaukee." In the memoir, Axelrod also reveals Obama briefly considered appointing Hillary to the Supreme Court after winning the Democratic primary. And the author also states that during a trip to New York City back in 2009, former Mayor Michael Bloomberg offered unsolicited advice, as he's been known to do. Talking about the president's demeanor, he said, "You know, his problem is you have to like people to be successful. You have to connect." I don't know that Mr. Mayor was always warm and fuzzy. Not you. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg here. But let's get to the first thing. Concession speeches are hard, or concession calls are hard to make here. Isn't protocol just great race, tough battle here? I wish you the best of luck for the next 4 years. Don't be giving tips.
I've been on both sides of them, and I've never, in any case, seen them to be anything but perfectly gracious. I feel like it might be a stretch to say something. You know, it's just you want to get off the phone. When you're on the other end, you want to get off the phone as quickly as possible, but you want to keep your dignity intact, and it's usually short and sweet and very respectable. So, you know,
I think both ends
remains
want
a
to get off
mystery.
that call as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
the
it's
winner
awkward.
or the
It's hard to speak through the tears.
Yes. Well, Vice President Joe Biden isn't committing to actually attending Benjamin Netanyahu's speech to Congress next month. It seems his fellow Democrats are following suit. Dozens of House Democrats are threatening to boycott the address by the Israeli Prime Minister next month. Analysts say this marks the lowest point in the relationship between the president and Netanyahu. Andrew, I ask you, if Democrats were saying, should we show up or not, what would you say?
I think it depends on what their district is and where they live, and who lives in that district. Just because, for some, it'll be a campaign argument against them. If you have an extremely high percentage of Jewish voters or an extremely high percentage of Christian evangelical voters, that will be used against them. I mean, then again, if you have a lot of Christian evangelical voters, you're probably not a Democrat who's elected to represent that district. Fair enough. But
it's not like Netanyahu's beloved universally.
No, he's not. But Israel is beloved universally as an American foreign policy, and there's no daylight, at least in the public perception of the relationship between the two countries. And anything that's seen as peeling away from that connection is just an automatic negative, or at least that's what the conventional wisdom says.
They are going around
I disagree with that, by the way.
And to Andrew's last point, they are going around the president the way this was done, the way the speaker did this. If you were a member of Congress and a Democrat, take even the Westchester district, would you stay away? Would you go?
Look, it's not my place to advise members of Congress, but I'll say this, and
Good
think
dodge.
about where I'm coming from. My mother was raised in Israel. She speaks with a thick Israeli accent. My uncle and his extended family live in Israel. I am passionately committed to the Israeli state and to the U.S.-Israeli alliance. And I think that what Netanyahu and Ambassador Dermer and Speaker Boehner did together is one of the great diplomatic mistakes of the modern era. Because a cornerstone of Israel's security is bedrock bipartisan support from the United States. And by playing games in the way that they have undermined that bipartisan support in a way that only harms Israel's security interests. I think they probably recognize at this point that they were too clever by half and that it's backfired in a terrible way. And I hope very much that cooler heads can enable us to get back to a point where there can be the kind of respectful professional relationship that has to exist between two governments that represent people who are true allies at every level.
And just a heads up, guys, I'm going to jump next to Brian Williams, but Dominic, this is a political move. Forget about it in the U.S. for Boehner. This is as much a political move. I think it comes across as patently political by Netanyahu, too.
Well, Netanyahu is facing an election. Let's keep that in mind,
Yeah.
number one. Number two, it's very clear that Obama and Netanyahu do not like each other, even though there's a great bond between America and Israel, as there should be. And number three is Netanyahu, I agree with the mayor, he violated the principle in terms of you don't go around the sitting president and newsflash, Mr. Prime Minister, next time don't endorse the Republican nominee as close as you did. It wasn't official, but he was.
You'd be going nuts
Look,
if it was
no,
if it
can I
was a
just say
Republican
two quick
president
points.
and a Democratic
Number one,
Congress.
politically, it was very stupid just from a domestic point of view. You have major donors in the U.S. that contribute based on this cause. And to sort of slap them in the face and say, I'm not going, not just for the members of Congress, but for the DNC, that's going to be hugely problematic for them.
Time out. If there was a Republican president and a Democratic Congress went around the commander-in-chief to invite heads of state to do a joint session,
Yes.
you don't think that would be offensive to the president?
I will say to you that that would never happen under a Republican president because they would never allow the relations to deteriorate this badly. This was born out of a complete frustration and tone deafness from this administration. So you know what? We're going to the separate but equal branch of government.
How many other foreign heads of state should be allowed to come to
What
Washington?
about the Pope? The Pope is coming to address Congress. Are they going to boycott that too? Are they going to boycott the
foreign
Pope?
policy. That's what Netanyahu's doing.
No, he's not. He's coming to
Jessica,
address.
He's trying to change
Congress.
American foreign policy when it comes
Yes.
to Iran.
Exactly, and people should start listening. It's a problem. It's a looming problem. They should open their
I want to
ears.
get to a couple of media things. You would go nuts if it was the other. And you
It would
know
never
it. All right,
happen.
please. Okay. NBC Nightly News anchor Brian Williams, he's apologizing to a degree over a comment that he made about his 2003 visit to Iraq. Last week, during his nightly news program, Williams stated that while in Iraq, and he said this before, the helicopter that he was riding in at the time was hit by enemy fire. Crew members who were actually on the Chinook that was hit by 2 rockets, as well as small arms fire, told Stars and Stripes that Williams, he was nowhere near the incident and that he arrived in the area about an hour later. Wednesday night, Williams issued this apology.
I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft. We all landed after the ground fire incident and spent 2 harrowing nights in a sandstorm in the Iraq desert. This was a bungled attempt by me to thank one special veteran and, by extension, our brave military men and women, veterans everywhere, those who have served while I did not. I hope they know they have my greatest respect and also now my apology.
That's a big mistake, Dom. That ain't a little one.
Well,
Wait, somebody said today they were hit by a rock when they were a kid in 2nd grade and they remember it. Nobody misremembers being hit by a rocket in Iraq, 10 years ago. And listen, I like Brian Williams. I respect him as a journalist. I do. And I think he's going to, get by this because of his record. But that's not a little mistake. That's a bad one.
okay, on a personal level, Brian is a nice guy. That's number one.
Universally thought of in the industry that way.
Yes, but I'm talking about on a personal level. He's somebody you can talk to. He's cool. But the fact of the matter is he lied. There's no other way around it. I mean, you can call it what you want, but he lied. I know what it's like to be in a war zone. When I was in Somalia, 110 degrees outside.
Africa hot.
And Africa hot. Believe me, that's hot. And they tell you if you leave this airport, a sniper could get you. You don't forget those things. So let's put it this way, he embellished the story.
Yeah. Well, that's being polite. And unfortunately, we have to wrap right now here. Jessica, Mr. Mayor, Andrew, Dominic, guys, thank you very much. We'll have a look at headlines after the break. Please stay with us.